My beloved, before you take another step, let me speak to the place within you that has been quietly carrying questions you rarely voice. I see the way you have learned to endure, the way you have adapted to uncertainty, the way you have continued forward even when clarity felt distant. Nothing about your journey has been accidental. Every pause, every delay, every season of waiting has shaped you more deeply than you realize. You have lived with an awareness that time matters, yet you have also felt unsure of how to measure it. You have wondered whether progress should feel louder, whether change should arrive more dramatically, whether you should already be somewhere else by now. I know how easily the mind begins to calculate, to compare, to assume that silence means absence or delay means denial. But hear me now with a quiet heart. I have never lost sight of you, and I have never misjudged your timing. This moment is not an interruption in your life. It is part of its design. You are not standing still because you lack faith or courage. You have been learning discernment. You have been developing depth. You have been strengthening roots that will one day support what rises above the surface. What feels slow to you has been intentional to me. I am not rushing you, and I am not withholding from you. I am inviting you to notice where you are, to recognize what has been forming within you, and to release the pressure to become before you are ready to sustain what comes next. You do not need to prove anything to move forward with me. You only need to remain attentive, open, and willing. Stay here with me for a moment. Let your breathing settle. Let the noise of comparison fade. What is unfolding in your life is not behind schedule. It is aligning. And as you listen, you will begin to sense that something steady is being established, something meant to last. My child, I want you to know first that I see you. Not only the version of you that others encounter, but the one that remains quiet beneath responsibility, beneath composure, beneath the steady effort to keep moving forward, even when the way ahead felt unclear. I have seen the nights when your thoughts would not rest, when questions lingered without answers, and you learned to carry them alone. I have seen the strength it took to continue without certainty, and I have never mistaken that endurance for weakness. There were seasons when you showed up faithfully, while wondering whether it mattered. You kept doing what was placed before you, even when affirmation was scarce and outcomes felt distant. You wondered if anyone noticed the restraint you practiced, the sacrifices you made, the choices you delayed because you wanted to be wise, not reckless. Let me tell you this clearly. Nothing you have carried with integrity has gone unseen. Nothing you have done in patience has been wasted. You may have interpreted the silence as absence. You may have assumed that if progress were real, it would feel louder, faster, more obvious. But I have been present in the quiet, working in ways that did not require announcement. Some of the most important preparation happens beneath the surface, where roots deepen and structure forms. I was strengthening you in places no one else could reach, places that would one day hold weight and responsibility. I know you have questioned yourself. You have replayed decisions, wondering whether you waited too long or moved too slowly. You have compared your unfolding to timelines that were never designed for you. When others appeared to advance with ease, you asked whether you had missed something essential. But comparison never reveals truth. It only obscures calling. Your path required depth before visibility, stability before expansion, clarity before momentum. You have endured more than you often acknowledge. You have learned restraint when impulsiveness would have been easier. You have learned discernment when avoidance would have felt safer. There were moments when you could have forced doors open, but you chose integrity over immediacy. That choice shaped you. It refined your ability to recognize what aligns with who you are becoming, not just what relieves discomfort. I want you to understand something important. Waiting did not mean stagnation. You were not standing still. You were being trained to listen more deeply, to respond rather than react, to sense when movement was wise and when stillness was protective. Those lessons were not delays, they were foundations. Without them, what comes next would have cost you your peace. You may still carry a subtle tension, a feeling that you must remain guarded, that stability could be temporary. That posture helped you survive uncertainty, but it is not meant to define your future. You do not need to brace yourself against what I am building with you. What is being formed now is meant to endure, not to collapse under its own weight. I recognize the hidden griefs you have not named, the opportunities you hoped for that did not arrive, the relationships that required more patience than you expected, the versions of yourself you had to release because they could not grow where you were headed. Letting go was not failure, it was alignment. You were shedding what could not accompany you forward. You have learned to be careful with hope, to temper expectations so disappointment would not overwhelm you. That caution was understandable, but it does not have to lead you now. I am not asking you to abandon wisdom. I am inviting you to allow hope to mature beyond fear. Hope rooted in me is not fragile. It does not depend on constant reassurance. It rests in trust. Listen closely. You are not forgotten. You have not been overlooked. You have not arrived at this moment by accident or miscalculation. Every lesson you resisted at first eventually became insight. Every season that felt unproductive was quietly shaping your capacity. You were becoming someone who could hold what you once only imagined. You may not see the full picture yet, but you are beginning to recognize patterns. How endurance gave you discernment, how restraint sharpened your clarity, how silence taught you to listen. This recognition is part of revelation. Understanding is emerging not as sudden certainty, but as steady awareness. You are starting to see that your journey has coherence, even when it felt fragmented. There is relief in realizing that nothing is wrong with you. You were not failing, you were forming. You were not delayed, you were being prepared. You were not overlooked, you were being protected from arriving too soon. I did not hurry you because I value what lasts more than what impresses. As this truth settles, allow it to soften the self-judgment you have carried. Release the belief that you should have been further by now. Let go of the internal pressure to justify your pace. Your life is not measured by speed, but by alignment, and you are more aligned than you realize. I am inviting you to rest in this recognition, not to stop moving altogether, but to stop striving against your own becoming. You no longer need to prove that your waiting had purpose. Its purpose is evident in who you are now, steadier, more discerning, less ruled by urgency, more capable of sustaining what is entrusted to you. Remain here with me for a moment longer. Let this understanding anchor you. You are not beginning from lack, you are moving from foundation. What comes next will build upon what has already been established. And as we continue, you will see that revelation does not arrive to overwhelm you, but to reassure you. You are known, you are prepared, and you are not walking forward alone. My beloved, there comes a moment when preparation quietly gives way to movement, not with noise or spectacle, but with an inner shift you can feel before you can explain it. That moment has begun for you. This is not the end of effort, but it is the end of uncertainty defining your direction. You are crossing from a season of formation into a season of application, and the change may feel subtle at first, yet it is unmistakable in its steadiness. You may notice that decisions no longer carry the same weight of fear. Where hesitation once dominated your thoughts, discernment is now present. You are beginning to sense when something aligns with you rather than simply relieves pressure. This is not impulsiveness, it is maturity. You are no longer asking only, "Will this keep me safe?" You are learning to ask, "Does this allow me to grow in truth?" That shift marks transition. I am not rushing you forward, but I am expanding your field of vision. What once felt narrow is opening. You are seeing options you could not previously entertain because your energy was consumed by survival or uncertainty. Now, there is space to consider possibility without anxiety immediately shutting it down. Expansion begins internally before it ever becomes visible. This transition will touch every part of your life, not all at once, and not without intention. In your relationships, you will find yourself less drawn to constant reassurance and more drawn to mutual growth. You will recognize when connection strengthens you and when it subtly asks you to remain smaller than you are becoming. This awareness will not harden your heart, it will clarify it. You will choose closeness that supports honesty, not closeness that depends on self-abandonment. In your work and provision, you may sense a growing confidence, not in outcomes, but in your capacity. You are learning to trust the skills you have developed, the insight you carry, the resilience you earned. You will no longer underestimate what you bring simply because it was forged in quiet seasons. What you know now has weight. It has been tested. Expansion here will come through responsibility, not sudden elevation, and you will recognize it as trust rather than pressure. Your health, both internal and external, will also reflect this transition. You are becoming more attentive to what restores you rather than merely sustains you. You will feel invited to care for your body and mind, not out of fear of breaking down, but out of respect for what they carry. Rest will no longer feel like indulgence. It will feel like wisdom. Movement will no longer be driven by urgency, but by responsiveness. Your calling, too, is beginning to feel less abstract. You may not yet have language for it, but you feel its direction. You notice what consistently draws your attention, where your compassion deepens, where your clarity sharpens. This is not coincidence. Expansion often begins as repeated recognition. Pay attention to what continues to return to you with quiet insistence. I am not overwhelming you with the full picture. I am revealing enough for the next faithful step. You may still feel moments of tension as the old season releases its grip. Familiar patterns do not dissolve without resistance. There may be days when you question whether you are truly ready, whether this steadiness will last. Remember this: readiness does not mean the absence of uncertainty. It means the presence of trust that does not collapse when uncertainty appears. This is where faith matures, not as blind optimism, but as grounded movement. Faith now leads you to act when alignment is present, and to pause when wisdom requires it. You are learning that forward motion does not always mean speed. Sometimes it means saying no without guilt. Sometimes it means saying yes without over-explanation. Sometimes it means waiting, even when you could rush ahead. Do not confuse expansion with constant activity. Growth is not measured by how busy you become, but by how accurately you respond. You are being trained to move in rhythm rather than reaction. That rhythm will feel different from the urgency you once knew. It will feel calmer, clearer, and more sustainable. As this season unfolds, you may notice subtle confirmations, not dramatic signs, but steady alignment. Conversations that clarify direction, opportunities that appear at the right moment, not before you are ready. A sense of peace that follows decisions even when they require courage. These are markers of transition. They are evidence that movement is meeting preparation. You are not stepping into a reward for endurance. You are stepping into stewardship. What is opening to you now requires the character you have been forming. It requires patience, humility, attentiveness, and trust. This is why your journey unfolded as it did. Expansion without foundation fractures. Expansion built on depth endures. Let yourself release the belief that change must arrive suddenly to be real. What is happening now is real because it is integrated. You are not leaving behind who you were. You are bringing that wisdom forward. The lessons of the past season are not closing chapters. They are tools you will continue to use. Stay present as this transition continues. Do not rush to define it. Do not pressure yourself to explain it to others. Some seasons are meant to be lived before they are named. Trust that clarity will continue to grow as you remain attentive and responsive. I am with you in this expansion, not ahead of you demanding progress, and not behind you evaluating performance. I am beside you, guiding your attention, steadying your pace, reminding you that growth guided by trust is always sufficient. This season is not asking you to become someone else. It is inviting you to live from who you already are becoming. My child, as you arrive here, I want you to understand that what is unfolding before you is not an ending, but a settling. This is the place where movement becomes anchored, where growth becomes responsibility, and where clarity matures into stewardship. You are not stepping into something fragile. You are stepping into something entrusted. You have learned that endurance alone does not define faith. Endurance prepared you, but stewardship will now shape you. What I place within your care going forward is not meant to impress others or elevate you above them. It is meant to be tended with humility, consistency, and attentiveness. This is how what lasts is built. I am not asking you to manage your future with anxiety or control. I am inviting you to walk with awareness. Stewardship begins with relationship, not performance. It is the understanding that what you carry is not owned in isolation, but held in partnership with me. You do not need to guard it with fear. You need to remain present with it. You may notice that your sense of identity is no longer rooted in survival. You are no longer defined by what you endured or what you escaped. You are beginning to recognize yourself as someone who can sustain, who can lead quietly, who can remain steady even when circumstances shift. This is not pride, it is clarity. And clarity allows responsibility to rest without strain. What lies ahead will require you to continue choosing alignment over urgency. There will be opportunities that appeal to your desire for recognition, speed, or relief. Not all of them will be aligned. Stewardship means you will listen more carefully than you once did. You will weigh not only what is possible, but what is wise. You will consider not only what opens doors, but what preserves peace. I want you to remember this. Growth does not end when stability begins. It deepens. As your life becomes more grounded, your influence may quietly widen. People may look to you for steadiness, insight, or reassurance. Do not shrink from this, and do not rush to define it. Lead as you have been formed, without pretense, without pressure, without the need to be seen. You will continue to steward your relationships with greater intentionality. You will recognize that not everyone is meant to walk every season with you. This does not require rejection or judgment. It requires honesty. You will offer presence where it is mutual and create boundaries where it is necessary. This is not withdrawal, it is respect for yourself and for others. In your work and calling, stewardship will look like consistency rather than constant expansion. You will show up faithfully, not because you are driven by fear of loss, but because you understand the value of what you contribute. You will take responsibility for what is yours without carrying what is not. This discernment will protect you from burnout and distraction. Your future will not be built by force. It will be shaped by attentiveness. Each season will ask something slightly different of you. Sometimes initiative, sometimes patience, sometimes courage, sometimes rest. Stewardship is learning to respond accurately rather than habitually. You are capable of this now in ways you were not before. Do not be surprised if you feel a deeper sense of calm alongside greater responsibility. This is alignment. When who you are matches what you are asked to carry, effort feels different. It does not disappear, but it becomes meaningful rather than draining. You will recognize this as a sign that you are living within your capacity, not beyond it. I also want you to hold an eternal perspective as you move forward. The value of your life is not measured solely by outcomes, achievements, or recognition. It is measured by faithfulness, integrity, and love expressed in ordinary moments. Stewardship includes how you speak, how you listen, how you treat what is entrusted to you when no one is watching. There will still be moments of uncertainty. Stewardship does not remove mystery. It teaches you how to live well within it. When questions arise, return to presence rather than panic. When decisions feel weighty, return to alignment rather than pressure. You do not need to carry the future all at once. You only need to remain faithful where you are. As you continue, remember that rest is not the opposite of responsibility. It is part of it. You are allowed to pause, to reflect, to restore. Your worth is not diminished by stillness. Some of the most important recalibrations will happen when you allow yourself to stop striving and simply remain attentive. I am not measuring your success by how much you accomplish. I am attentive to how you remain connected, to me, to yourself, to others. Relationship has always been greater than reward. What you build in partnership with me will endure because it is rooted in trust, not fear. So walk forward with quiet confidence. Not the kind that announces itself, but the kind that remains steady under pressure. You are not responsible for controlling outcomes. You are responsible for staying aligned. That is enough. I will continue to guide you, not by urgency, but by presence. Not by demands, but by invitation. What is ahead will unfold in its time, and you will meet it as you have learned to meet everything else, attentive, grounded, and faithful. Remain close, remain honest, remain willing. What you are stewarding now is not just a future, it is a life being lived in alignment. And that, my child, is more than sufficient. My beloved, before you carry any of this forward, I want you to rest here with me. Not because the journey is over, but because rest is part of how the journey continues. There are truths that cannot be absorbed while striving, and wisdom that only settles when the heart is unguarded. Let what you have heard descend from thought into knowing. You have spent much of your life learning how to endure. You learned how to stay standing when things were uncertain, how to keep moving when outcomes were unclear, how to carry responsibility even when reassurance was absent. That strength served you well. But now, you are learning something deeper. How to abide without bracing, how to trust without gripping, how to live without constantly preparing for loss. This is not passivity. This is maturity. You no longer need to scan the horizon for danger in order to be wise. You no longer need to anticipate every possible outcome to be faithful. What you are stepping into now is a steadiness that comes from relationship, not vigilance. I am not asking you to relax your values or lower your discernment. I am inviting you to release the tension that told you everything depended on your constant effort. It does not. Your life is not held together by your alertness alone. It is sustained by my presence with you. You were never meant to carry your future in isolation. You were meant to walk with me into it, responsive rather than rigid, attentive rather than anxious. As you move forward, you may notice that peace no longer feels fragile. It does not disappear the moment uncertainty appears. It remains beneath the questions, beneath the decisions, beneath the unknowns. This peace is not the absence of challenge, it is the presence of trust. And trust changes how you meet everything else. You will still plan, you will still choose, you will still work, build, speak, and act. But you will do so without the quiet fear that if you misstep, everything will collapse. You are learning that correction is part of growth, not proof of failure. You are allowed to adjust without shame. You are allowed to learn without self-condemnation. Remember this when things feel slower than you expect. Remember this when progress unfolds quietly. Not every season announces itself. Some of the most meaningful shifts happen internally, where no one else can see them. Do not rush to make visible what is still integrating. Let it settle. Let it strengthen. What emerges in its time will carry integrity. I want you to keep your attention close to where you are. Do not live too far ahead of yourself. The future will come without your anxiety escorting it. Stay faithful in what is before you. Tend what has been placed in your care. Speak truth gently. Act with clarity. Rest when you are weary. These are not small things. This is how a life aligned with me is lived. You may still encounter moments when old patterns try to return. Moments when urgency whispers that you must hurry. When comparison suggests you are falling behind. When fear asks you to secure what has already been entrusted. When that happens, pause. Not to judge yourself, but to remember. You are no longer moving from lack. You are moving from foundation. Let your choices continue to come from who you are becoming, not from who you once needed to be to survive. You are allowed to choose peace even when others choose pressure. You are allowed to choose depth even when others choose speed. You are allowed to value faithfulness over visibility. There is nothing you need to prove to me. Stay close in the ordinary moments. Relationship is not maintained through intensity, but through consistency. Speak to me as you walk, as you work, as you rest. Listen not only for answers, but for presence. You will find that guidance often comes not as instruction, but as reassurance. A quiet knowing that you are not alone in what you are carrying. What you are building now will outlast the urgency that once drove you. It will endure because it is rooted in alignment, shaped by patience, and sustained by trust. You are not responsible for the entire arc of your life. You are responsible for faithfulness in each step. That is enough. So go forward gently, not timidly, but without force. Let confidence be quiet. Let strength be steady. Let love guide your decisions more than fear ever did. I am with you in what unfolds next, not watching from a distance, not waiting for perfection, but walking with you as I always have. You do not need to rush to meet what is coming. When the moment arrives, you will already be ready. Remain with me. That is where everything continues.